Look, the EC regulators are focused on a number of things, not just whether it's coal or gas. So we have to be mindful that the whole trilemma of security of supply, affordability, are key elements of the debate. The carbon equation is complex, as we've seen in our deliberations here as EAGC 2015. We're going to have to find a way of explaining the benefits more profoundly than we're doing today. It's clear we're not doing a good enough job. The industry needs to be on the front foot, constantly reminding regulators of the benefits, but why those benefits exist and what happens if we use those benefits, take those benefits, not only from a carbon standpoint, in other words, from a human standpoint, from a cost standpoint as well, and translate those into very practical elements around the trilemma. How does it make it more affordable? How will consumers see the difference? What will it look like? What's different? But of course, it's a big agenda. And of course, I sit here as an advocate and a lobbyist for the gas industry. There are equally many people sitting in rooms like this lobbying for the coal industry. The coal industry doesn't go away because the gas industry wants it to. We have to compete. We have to compete in a way that shows that we are the better fossil fuel. So it's down to us to convince the regulators. Poking a finger at them and saying they've got it wrong is as much our problem as it is theirs. If they've got it wrong, it's because we haven't told them, we haven't explained to them, and we've not done our job properly. Well, I think in 2016 we won't see a lot of change in Europe, but we'll see more dialogue around east-west connectivity. We'll see more dialogue around north-south connectivity. We'll see more dialogue around the use of low load factor LNG facilities, which isn't necessarily an investment, but it's a greater usage factor on infrastructure that already exists. There are all sorts of debottlenecking issues that we have to deal with. We have to deal with cross-border issues, and that came out loud and clear today in the conference. All of these, I suspect, by 2016 will be more discussion. Some of them will be, in the planning phase, perhaps. But it's clear that infrastructure is required, and this great debate around the chicken and the egg. We're going to have to find a way of making those investments. Well, we've talked about regulators and we've talked about policymakers. What we haven't talked about is consumers. And the lobbying is as much about the consumers as it is about the regulators. The consumers burn the stuff, the consumers breathe the air in which the carbon molecules exist following any kind of fossil fuel combustion. We need to start at grassroots level. We need to start in schools and universities. We need to convince think tanks. We need to convince academics of the virtues of natural gas. There's nothing wrong with starting at the grassroots level. Society needs to understand. I mean, society is active to learn, and we assume that almost by osmosis they will accept that it's better because we know it is, and we know that the carbon emissions are lower and the cost for power generation with or without carbon taxes is equivalent or better than coal on a full on a full cycle basis. But we have to convince people of that. We've got to lay it out for them, explain it to them, explain to them why in Britain, when natural gas from the North Sea is declining, that we shouldn't be afraid of that the world is awash with gas looking for new markets. So Europe has many, many supply opportunities, not just from Norway and the North Sea, but also from Russia, from LNG, and Britain is well served with LNG import terminals that can serve the population for many, many, many decades to come. So it's a part around the supply side, it's partly around the demand side, but it's convincing people of the benefits. And there's no better way, in my view, than bringing this into the schools, make it part of the basic learning, as we're doing with STEM programs within education today. Let's talk about fuel, let's talk about energy, not necessarily policy, but energy philosophy, and why it matters to society, not for you and me today, but for our children and for their children, which is what this is really all about.